Hi there. Welcome to Storytellers and Changemakers podcast. And today we are with Leilani Garrett. It's been a long, convoluted journey to finally get to sit down together and have this conversation, but I think it will be worth your while. Hi, Leilani. Say hi.
Hello, May. How are you?
Fine, thank you. Fine, thank you. We've had a conversation already a few weeks ago and got to know each other a little bit. And I am so happy that she's here to talk to us about storytelling and empathy and everything else that is her superpower. So Leilani is, well, let me read her bio on her website. It says, in a world racing towards optimization and instant output, Leilani Garrett offers something more, something rarer, a pause, a perspective, a return to what actually makes us effective, which is our humanity. And today I think one of the main things that we're going to be talking about is being more human. Leilani is a storyteller extraordinaire. She's an author. She spent more than 2 decades in corporate sales and leadership, those high stakes environments. She's led teams. She's closed multi-million-dollar deals. And behind every win, she says that she saw what most companies were missing, which is connection. So she knows the systems because she's worked in them, but she didn't stay there. And instead, she rewrote the scripts. I love the fact that you're an author and that the book that she has written, what's the name of your book?
To the burn.
After the Burn is a fiction book, but behind that fiction book, there's some very strong lessons about ambition, friendship, identity. And she actually uses the book to teach. She teaches, she writes at the intersection of story, empathy, and leadership. And then she guides professionals, keynotes, crafting narratives, and more and more and more. Anyway, so I will put her website details at the bottom because there's much more to find and to dig into. But I would like us to go straight into our conversation. So, hi, Leilani, welcome. And thank
Thank
you
you.
for
Good to be here.
joining us. Yeah. So, how's your day? Or
My
how's your
day's
day?
good. Yeah. It's Wednesday. Wednesday's one of my favorite days. I work out first thing on Wednesday morning, so that always gets me sort of juiced up to do whatever's next.
Yeah, so yeah, it's a good day. It's a good day to have a good conversation. So when we had our conversation, I thought it would be great for us to start with your personal story, your origin story, because I think that kind of points to what we want to talk about.
Mm.
So can you tell us a bit about yourself and
Yeah. I was born in Omaha, Nebraska, so in the Midland, 50 plus years ago. We'll just sort of landed there. And grew up in sort of a kind of lower middle class Black family. And not so diverse a community, but there were white people in the community, but it was mostly a Black community. And my mother was a housekeeper, and I worked with her in the summers from like 12 to 16 at folks' house. I like to say my mama cleaned white folks' houses for a living, which is what she did. And my father worked in the packing plant. So we were very, middle class, paycheck to paycheck family. And I have
mm,
a brother who grew up with me. And I knew I was adopted. I was told that pretty early on. Maybe I was 8 or 9 years old. And I don't remember having any hangups about it at all. Other than I left to get on my bike and I was crossing the street, but I didn't even look to ride my bike across. And I almost got hit by a car. And my neighbor, a friend of mine who was also a little girl, was like, "Don't go out in the street." And I stopped as I was heading out in the street. So it said to me, even though in my mind it hadn't impacted me in any way, somehow there was some sort of jolt
some
in my,
yeah, kind of
yeah.
connection?
And I
Mm,
never really thought about it again that much at all, but there was some underlying impact for sure. And then and the story that I was told was that my mother was white. She was a college student and a piano prodigy, classical pianist who had very promising opportunities in front of her. And that my father was in the Air Force and obviously, or not obviously, I don't know, but was a Black man. And so I grew up with that in my head. And I married a guy who kept telling me to find my mother. Find your mother, because what if there's like an illness you need to know? And I was like,
mm.
I don't need to know her.
You
I don't
already
need to
had
know.
your parents.
Yeah. And I felt like she gave me away. And so clearly, why do I need to know her? And then when I had my son, and I remember thinking that day or soon thereafter that you literally would have had to probably kill me to get him from me, to take him from me. And at that point, I started to resent her deeply.
Wow. Wow.
Yes, because I thought, how could she? I wouldn't
Couldn't,
have been able to do it. Yeah, and it wasn't fair. It was unfair but I think it blocked me for many years in terms of like some of the good that could have come into my life because of this very deep resentment. And I met actually two women who had similar stories, both white women. One in my neighborhood who I started to kind of hang out with when my son was very little, 1 or 2 years old. And she told me a similar story that she had met a man who she had a child with that she gave away. And I didn't like her. There was something about her. So I didn't feel any compassion for her situation. And it didn't change how I felt about the mother that I was told. Then I met another woman. I was at a writers conference in New York City, and she had been a ballerina. And she somehow at dinner, I went to dinner with her and another woman who had a son who had the same name as my son. His name is Colin. So the three of us were having dinner, and she started to tell this story about her being a ballerina and that she got pregnant while she was in the theater company for American Ballet Theater. So she was
oh,
really,
wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
she was going
On
to
her
go
way up.
and she got pregnant and you can't be a ballerina and be pregnant at the same time. And she was a teenager. And so she gave the baby away. And the way she told the story and the way she shared it really impacted me in a way where I start to feel like I stopped judging my mother because who am I to tell her how to live her life based on my experience? That's completely unfair. And so it sort of opened me up to forgiving her and forgiving myself for being so resentful of her. Now, fast forward to 2023, and I learned in a very interesting way that my mother was not a white woman who played the piano, but she was a black woman who lived in Detroit, who grew up in Black Bottom. And so it was a whole different truth than what I was told as a child. I was super excited to know that I had a black mother because I have a strong affinity for black women,
Mm.
but it was a very different story than I was told. So my interest in being more human is because we are all one thing. And I think if we look at a lot of the stories behind our families, they're all these, I don't know, we could call them secrets, but they're all these intricacies that bind us together. White families, Hispanic families, there's something that weaves us all together, and we are really one human family.
I see so much in what you're saying, so many threads that I want to like pull at. One is that just the fact that you experience different versions of almost the same story,
Mm.
and each version of the story made you feel a different way.
Oh, good point.
Yeah, so it's almost like the way the story was told to you gave you different perspectives. And then also I see how you came to that point of being able to actually have that empathy for your mom after hearing different versions of the story and finally being able to put yourself in her place as well. And obviously your understanding has changed over the years of that same story. So I
Yeah.
I think there's something very powerful about what stories can do for and to people. What would you say about that?
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that's first of all a very poignant observation. You're right. It was two women who told similar stories. I mean, if we were pulling out just the things that happened, they were the same essentially with like different
Yeah. Mhm.
circumstances. But the person telling the story and the way the story was told impacted me very differently. And to your point, it speaks to the transformative power of story in our lives. Every interaction is wrapped in a story. What we're doing here today, when I meet someone on the street, there's a story behind every interaction. I think it makes a difference who the teller is, and their angle on the story can impact how we perceive the information and what it does inside of
Yeah.
us as it relates to how we move forward.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, when you just jumping to another same but different, when you go to speak on stage
Mhm.
and you are talking to an organization, what is it that you have in mind that you really, really hope that they can go away with? When
Yeah.
it comes, they ask you to say, "Oh, there's this lady. She's very good with storytelling. Everybody hears this buzzword. Storytelling is a good thing to know and to have." and to do when you stand there in front of them? What is it that you really hope that you can impact
Mm,
them with?
yeah, there are a couple things. I feel like we dismiss stories and the power of stories. They're just these little things, books we read or stories we hear. And there's real science behind how our brains are impacted by stories we hear. When I tell a story to someone, and if it's vivid enough, my motor cortex and their auditory cortex light up in the same rhythm. We literally Bluetooth pair our brains. And
Yeah.
it really, it's crazy, right? And it increases connection and understanding. And then there are mirror neurons. If you're telling a story, I talk about Bambi. Bambi's mother died. And then Bambi ran through the meadow, and our motor cortex actually sprints with Bambi running through the meadow. Our brain doesn't know we're not doing that. It imagines that we're literally doing it, which is, I want folks to know that story is not some innocuous little thing that happens. It actually drives human connection. And so I teach them a little bit about the science of story and what it does inside our brains and how important it is, and that it can and does drive empathy when we use it for that. But more than anything, I want them to be curious about the people around them.
Hmm.
Ask questions about the person who sits next to you. Ask questions of the person you meet at the coffee shop and learn more about their stories because it enriches all of our lives. I mean, there's a story I like to tell about my son who was in middle school at the time. You know, you pick your kids up from school and you ask them, "How was your day?" And they say, "Fine. It was
Right.
okay." End of story, right? And I discovered that I was getting nowhere in terms of understanding what happened during his day. So I started asking specific questions. What was the most fun you had today? What was the most challenging thing you did today? And then who were you kind to or who was kind to you and how did that make you feel? And so
Hmm.
I got curious about what happened with him during the day and it gave me a richer understanding of his life over the course of those years when he was in middle school.
I mean, that is so amazing. I think this is something that people need to pick up. I mean, if there's anything, one of the things that you should pick up from listening to this today is just that we should be more curious with people. The way I'm dressed this way because I went for an interview today,
Mm,
um, for a role, and I had a conversation with the guy just before well, he's part of the team, and and we were just talking and talking and talking, and I think I know his life story, and it was just that if you have that curiosity, people open up and then they tell you the things that are important to them. They tell you the way they see the world, and it was really nice being curious. If not, you're just gonna get surface information.
mm.
I love that way that you did it with your son, and I'm sure you got the results that you want.
Yeah, way more than I would have gotten with "How was your day?" Right?
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about radical empathy.
Mhm.
It's something that you speak about. Can you explain what you mean by that?
Yeah, yeah. I think that folks feel there's a confusion between empathy and sympathy. Sympathy
Hmm.
is literally feeling sorry for someone, where empathy is understanding them as much as you can and sort of putting yourself in their position. And so having a feeling of how they might feel. And radical empathy, we do that. Like she told a story, and gosh, I felt sad for her because her mother passed, or she lost a promotion, and gee, I felt sad for her. Radical empathy is okay, now what? What's next? If I hear a story from a colleague who tells me they didn't get a promotion and they're sad today, what can I do? How can I contribute to this human in this moment?
Hmm.
So the empathy is not just me feeling sad for her or sorry for her because she lost a promotion, but now I want to contribute in some way. And that's what makes it radical because it's more. It's something to do to make a difference in the life of that person. Some small thing, perhaps, a word, who knows, a buy her a coffee, something that gives of myself to this human who is feeling a certain way.
So it's almost like doing just that little bit more than
Mm,
just saying,
exactly.
"Oh, I understand." Okay. When you talked about curiosity and then also radical empathy, you make me think about how storytelling is a two-way thing. And I don't think I've heard anybody say it as well as you say that, where storytelling is not just one person telling a story to the other, but it's almost like a two-way exchange. I mean,
Mhm.
back to what you talked about with the brain and the auditory thing. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yes, I believe that, and my research indicates that part of empathy too, and this whole story idea of storytelling is not just hearing it, but really listening. A lot of time we hear someone speaking to us, and that would be a two-way because someone speaking and me listening, that's two ways. That's not just you. I'm doing something on this end,
Yeah.
listening to you, not thinking about what do I want to say next, because that devoids what you're sharing with me. So listening is a huge part of this two-way exchange. And one of the things I teach is if you're in a conversation with someone and they're still speaking after 60 seconds, let them speak. Let them speak for at least 90 seconds before you interrupt. We interrupt people too often. And I'm guilty as well. And I work on it still daily. It's a practice where I'm just going to listen until you stop. And then I will ask a question or interject as opposed to jump in mid sentence that you're talking. So listening is a huge part of this two-way communication with regard to hearing a story and understanding it better and then asking the next question or saying something that's going to make a difference in the life in this moment for that person.
You know what that makes me think about when I listen to audiobooks. So I love reading, and now I am listening to audiobooks. And when I tell my husband I'm reading an audiobook, he's like, "You can't read an audiobook." So what happens when I am reading or listening? I'm there. I have the picture, the movie is going on in my head as I'm listening. The way the person is, they've described the person. If it's tall, short, dark hair, whatever. Sometimes I even see myself doing the motions. Like she opened her mouth and then she closed her mouth because she didn't know what to say. I find myself doing those motions, or she shook her head or something
Yep.
like that. But what I'm just saying is that is it kind of speaks to that thing that you're talking about. You're actively listening. So when somebody is talking to you, something is going on in your head as well. You're supposed to be listening to what they're doing and almost retelling the story to yourself as you're listening to the person, or putting the pieces together instead of just listening because you can't wait to just see the next thing.
Mhm. Mhm. I think we're I think we're taught to, or somehow we pick up on this idea that we have to be ready to speak. And so
Mm,
rather than, listening, we're hearing, and there are two different things. We're hearing and now we're ready to jump in and say what we have to say. It's interesting you made a really good point about when you're listening to an audiobook, quote unquote reading it, your brain puts you in that place.
yeah.
I'm reading a book called People of the Book by Geraldine Brooks, and it's about an ancient manuscript. And I literally can see this book that she's describing in front of me. My brain doesn't know that it's not in my head.
Mm,
It's a real brain thing happening when we read. And I read just yesterday that like, people aren't reading books anymore. And so they're not connecting with the stories of other type of people. For example, I'm black, you're black. A lot of white people have no clue the impact of the history that we've shared across the globe, not even to say in America. And
mm.
because they haven't read, they haven't looked at the art, they haven't listened to the music, only what's popular and or culturally appropriate for them. But when we read and hear stories, it expands our view of the world.
See, it does. Honestly, it really does. My aunt published her biography. She's 80 something. I will not
Wow.
say her age because she's very particular about her age. Anyway,
Right.
she published her book, and she was telling her story, and she's such a good storyteller. And you actually, she grew up in Nigeria. I'm Nigerian. I've been here for maybe 20 years in the UK, but I'm Nigerian. So, but it's so interesting to see the world that she lived in through her eyes, which is
Mm.
not the world that I knew, or the Nigeria that she lived in. So things that we don't think about. This was her world. This was her. This was so many things. Like she said, okay, she's 80. No, her mom, which my grandmom, used to bake,
Mm.
and she described the oven. If the oven was an earth oven, and they
Mm.
would dig the ground, and they
Yeah.
would they will put the fire in there and something, then they will cover it with earth, and it was proper cake and proper bread that they
Mhm.
were making, but and it was their everyday life. It's just like you said, if we're not reading, how do we get to experience other people's worlds? These days, when I go into Netflix, it's hard to find what to watch because you're seeing half the movies there are some fantasy worlds, fantasy planets, and
Mhm.
fantasy civilizations. And I'm like, I just want to see something with real people at a real time. So
Yeah.
it's
Well, I was just gonna say, I did DNA. My son did DNA for me in 2019, and I learned some things about my ancestry. And I'm 16% Nigerian, which I take great pride
oh
in.
my
So
goodness.
yes, so
Hello.
I'm wanting to learn more about Nigerian folks who are very ambitious, very smart, very focused on moving forward in life, which is something I think that's very beautiful. And it's a cultural thing. It's a big
Yeah.
it's a big emphasis, as I understand it, for Nigerian folk to really want to better themselves, propel, and make some contribution to the world that's significant. So
Yes.
I'm proud to be 16% Nigerian.
Oh, that's wonderful. The guy that I was just telling you about that I spoke to, he said his father in the Lord, so it was a Nigerian, or the person that
Mm,
taught him many of the things he knows. He's Scottish, white Scottish. And
mm.
then okay, so let me not give too much more information. But he says I went to Nigeria and I stayed there for some months and they gave me a Nigerian name. So I think we're gonna give you one, maybe by the end
Oh,
of this episode.
okay,
You'll give you a
yeah.
Nigerian name. I was like, oh, that's so wonderful. That means that they liked you and they accepted you. Yeah. So that's
Mm,
the kind of thing that they do. But
yeah.
anyway, let's go back to empathy. I think it's when people talk about empathy, most people, when it comes into their mind, they think of it like, something softer and
Yep.
mushy and is like sentimental kind of
Mm.
thing. And what would you say to people who say that?
Understand why folks feel that way. It's a lack of information, essentially. I would say that's, when I talk to corporations, some folks think it's a soft skill to have empathy. It's a soft skill. It's if I'm a manager, I should be empathetic with my people. It's a soft skill. It helps them like me better. It's not a soft skill. It's a smart skill. And it actually should be incorporated into strategy. There's a lot of information, the receipts, if you will, that support that empathy in a corporate environment or any environment, frankly, does a couple of things. It increases innovation. Innovation is
Mm,
nothing more than a wild idea. It really is just a wild idea. Now, if I'm in a corporate space and I'm in a room of people who I don't think care about me, know about me, have any consideration for my perspectives, I'm not going to pitch a wild idea. So
mm, mm.
innovation in that environment is lower. 50% growth in innovation for empathetic teams.
That's a big
And
one.
it's
That's a big
crazy.
one.
It is. It's huge. And then there's revenue. Empathetic teams and companies who focus on actual people making connections and knowing each other better and caring about each other, they have a 20% increase in revenue year over year. So it is something that actually drives business. You know why? Because the collective capacity of people is what generates value in a corporation. The
Hmm,
collective capacity of people to bring value to customers is what drives revenue. And so one person doing it, two people doing it, this group does it, but this group doesn't, reduces revenue. It is a
mm.
hard, fast skill that drives innovation, drives revenue, drives connection, all the things. It's super important that corporations really spend time making sure that people care about each other.
I was just saying today that people don't realize, people say this thing and we parrot it. We say it's the people that make the organization, it's the people that make the organization. And today I was just saying to a friend, and I was like, I need to just clap when I'm saying this. It's about the people. If you take a different set of people and put them into the same organization, the same system, the same setup, you're going to get a different result because they're different
Amen.
people. If you have a corporation or a big organization or something, you just think, oh, it's the systems. Oh, we just need to make the systems more effective, more efficient, as if the people are interchangeable. But it's really the people that you need to build that. And once you build them, then
Yeah.
your organization grows. So I think we're getting to the end of our conversation, but I wanted to ask you, a question so that listeners can have something practical to take away. What would you say recommend as one small habit or one practice that people can start using right away? And I think if you listen back, the
Mhm.
listeners would have picked up one or two already. But what is one small habit or practice that people can start using right away to be more human? Because this conversation really is about being more human in how we listen and connect.
Yeah. I mean, the first one, as I stated, which is listen for 90 seconds. Don't interrupt folks when they're talking. Let them finish
Mm,
what they have to say and pay attention. Really be a good listener. Develop that skill. The other one is to actually, when you are when you're telling a story, well, let's back up. So be a good listener and be really, really curious about the people in front of you. Don't ask like say no questions or questions that have a hard, quick answer like, fine, how was your day? Fine. That's a say no question. So
mm,
ask a question that gives the person an opportunity to expand upon what they're talking about so that you can get more of the story. There's
mm,
something I recommend to teams, and it's called Story Swap. And so I've asked leaders you do the weekly meeting with your team. When you do the weekly meeting, start it with a story swap. That's two people. One person speaks for 60 seconds and tells what was the last time you were genuinely proud at work. They tell their story for 60 seconds. The other person tells their story for the same prompt, if you will.
yeah.
And the person who told each one of them feels a little bit more seen. I learned something about her that I didn't know that maybe I can celebrate. And when we do that, our team becomes more cohesive. We're closer together. We understand each other.
Mm, mm,
Another thing is like if your teammate or someone you know says something to you, this is all back to listening, repeat it to them verbatim. If you're a seller, some guy says,
really?
yeah, because if I paraphrase what you said to me, you kind of know I heard you. But if I say exactly what you said, you're like, oh, she heard me. So now we're connecting a little bit more and you're understanding that this is someone who's paying attention to me. So listen. If you're a team leader, do a story swap. Be curious as a human being at work and in your community and repeat what people say to you word for word. It really helps them know that you cared about what they had to say.
Well, final question, and just I would like you to tell us about, how you work with people, if somebody needed your help, or and where can they find you, and
Hmm.
all that good stuff.
Okay, fantastic. I'm on Instagram at Lonnie, Lahnee. And then I'm on LinkedIn, Leilani Garrett. And my website is leilani-garrett.com. And I would really suggest that folks go out there and grab a copy of the Radical Empathy Playbook, which outlines a lot of practical exercises that they can do in their community and specifically in corporate America to build more cohesive teams, create greater innovation, as well as grow revenue and increase employee engagement, which is pretty low these days.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's what lots of people are grasping for now, that
Mhm.
sense of connection, because it stabilizes us when you feel connected with everything that's going on around you. You kind of have
Yeah.
some kind of anchor. And
Mm.
so that connectedness, a lot of people need it now. So Radical Empathy Playbook. And I will put your details anyway, wherever this video or the podcast is. I'll put your details and the links there so you can find them. Well, thank you so
Awesome.
much, Leilani. It has been wonderful. I think we got there in the end. Thank you. I hope to see you somewhere around the
My
interweb.
pleasure. And don't forget to give me a Nigerian name.
The
And
Nigerian
not in
name,
a moment whenever it comes to you.
Lolade, Lolade,
Lolati?
Lolade, Lolade.
Okay, I will follow up.
Okay, Lolade. That's the name that
Ooh,
just popped in my head. I
yeah,
have to check the meaning now.
I love it.
Maybe
Thank
because
you.
of the Leilani. I'm going to
Mhm.
check meaning of Lolade because names have to have meanings in Nigeria. You can't just have a name, just a name for meaning of
Yeah.
Lolade. Wealth has come. Wealth has come,
Wealth has come.
or honor has arrived.
Love it. Thank you.
Lolade.
Grateful.
You're welcome, Lolade. And yeah, have a good evening. Thank you so much for joining us. And I hope to I see you soon, really. I think
Beautiful.
I'm going to grab a copy of your book, Beyond the Burn, Above the Burn,
After the Burn.
After the Burn, After the
Hmm.
Burn. Is a romance, sort of romance action.
It's an exploration of love, ambition, and self-determination. So yeah, there's some romance for sure. Some spicy romance.
Nice, nice. Okay, thank you,
I'll
thank you
send
so
you the
much.
link.
Okay,
Thank you so much. Really great to be with you.
You have been listening to the Storytellers and Changemakers podcast with Emma Bassi. If you enjoyed the episode, please take a minute and leave us a review. It would really help us. For show notes and links mentioned in this episode, visit emmabassi.com/podcast. Thanks, and see you on the next episode where we hear more stories and strategies from amazing storytellers and change makers.